I wrote Twisted because so many boys, when I visited their classroom to talk about Speak, told me they didn't understand why the main character in Speak was upset after having been raped. And I got that from boys all over America in every demographic, really, really awesome boys who I would let date my daughters. This proved to me that I didn't understand boys. And just parenthetically, the reason that they didn't understand why she was upset is that it wasn't a stranger in the bushes with a gun. It was a hot guy, a senior, that she was on a date with, they were making out, and, this is a critical point, boys and girls are surrounded by hypersexuality in the media. And so if you have a young man with a high testosterone level, seeing all this stuff, and he has no adults in his life who's there to teach him the rules of human dignity, to teach him, well, this is why we don't hurt women, because this is a big deal, and she will be, really traumatized for a long time. That's why we have the sexual assault rates that we have. When you tell boys what the rules are, they're fine. They do a pretty good job, most of them. So anyways, but that was the incident that showed me over and over again that I didn't understand boys. So I had a lot of listening to do. And going around the country, the boys would explain to me or they'd write to me. And there were three things that kept on coming up when they were talking to me about what's going on inside themselves. Number one, almost every single boy I talked to had been at one time or another the victim of a bully. And sometimes he turned around and was a bully himself to move up in the pecking order, but he didn't feel good about it. Number two, almost every boy I talked to was feeling sad because of the emotional or physical absence of his father. And they didn't know how to do anything about that. Every boy I talked to was confused about girls, which makes a lot of sense. And I came to the conclusion after listening to and watching these boys for so long that I actually think it might be harder to be a teenage boy in American culture than it is to be a teenage girl. Because our culture allows teenage girls to express their emotions, sometimes at very dramatic levels, but their feelings are getting out and someone's listening to them, hopefully, and they're being validated, and then they can go on. Boys have every bit as rich emotional lives as girls. They got all those feelings, but the culture only tells them you're allowed to show anger or rage, preferably on a sports field. And too many boys are feeling like once they get past, 10, 11 years old, they're not allowed to show their feelings. They're not allowed to be tender or to cry or to, have pride in an appropriate way. And so all these emotions get buckled down so tightly. And I think this leads to a lot of middle-aged guys being very miserable because they've lost touch with that emotional self. And it makes the teenage boys sometimes do profoundly stupid things. Because they're just like this. So I wanted to write about that kid. I wanted to write about, most guys are awesome. I love them. And they're doing so good, especially when they're in schools that don't have strict dress codes and the girls are forgetting to put their clothes on. And that's hard. I'm amazed that more of them aren't walking into walls. And they're just trying to get by. The other thing that was in my mind about Twisted is that one of my favorite pieces of American literature is Death of a Salesman by Arthur Miller. I think it sums up the last 100 years. And that's why in the book, my character is named Tyler Miller. It's kind of a nod a little bit. And in my mind, as I was working on the book, I think that Tyler Miller is sort of the literary grandson of Willy Loman. He's coming from a family who has swallowed that consumer culture dream of be popular, be rich, buy a lot of stuff, and you'll be happy. And that's an empty dream. And it's the end of Willie. And in Tyler Miller's book, you can see his dad is trying. His dad is doing everything that society is telling him to do, and he's miserable, and he's making his family miserable. And Tyler has a wonderful moment of opportunity, that choice. It's going to follow that path or try to blaze his own. So yeah, it was the writing process of Twisted was incredible, getting into the head of a boy. Again, something I approached with a lot of respect, a lot of research and prayer to make sure that please help me do this right. And it worked. It worked. I get such great emails. Most of the email from boys is sent between 2 and 4 in the morning, and because they write to me as soon as they finish the book. And they write to me and they usually start out saying, "Dude, I love this book." And then they go on and tell me how it connects to their story. And it's hitting one of those notes every single time. Many of them have contemplated suicide. And that's just heartbreaking. But the good news is, they've got teachers that are handing them books, they've got librarians that are handing them books, and hopefully we can all be a village, and get them through adolescence and get them through safely.